Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we can be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate you. Edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zhu and P-Bush. How are you guys doing?
Great, man. Just clinched 3 out of 4 fantasy football playoffs this year. I'll take it, man. I'll take it after such a brutal year. Waiver wire injuries, trades, man. Although a lot of busts too, Zoo. I think, and we're going to talk about this, I think, next week after fantasy, reacting on the season. But man, we got to really cool it on some of these rookies, man, when you're drafting them. I swear to God, because, man, the ADPs were so overvalued this year. And I know, Zoo, you create your own ADP, kind of similar to ESPN a little bit, but you kind of do your own thing. I think a lot of people really got to start taking ADPs from ESPN, wherever, Pro Football Network, whatever you're taking it from, with a grain of salt, because I think a lot of teams flopped this year, just kind of following the trends.
Mm-hmm. Especially this year. A lot of receivers went a lot earlier than used to. I still remember that. Usually running backs are king in the first 2 rounds. Wide receivers definitely dominated the first round this year. But the RBs came back with the vengeance, and it's the OG RBs, man. It ain't just the new blood RBs. It's the OGs are still them. Like Saquon, if you have Saquon, you're a 50% chance of making the playoffs just right there with one player, Saquon Barkley. And guys like Derrick Henry, these guys are definitely undervalued this year. So, my goodness, it's been an interesting year. And I got a couple teams on life support right now. Next week is a big week. It's on life support. And all
a lot of big buys too.
I got no more buys. I already got hit with the bye weeks.
I got some big buys.
Man, I hope I play some teams with some big buys because I need a free dub right now to make it to the playoffs. Win and get in. I got to control my own destiny. Can't be relying on others to get me in. Got to control my own destiny. So
there you go.
It's definitely how I feel. Definitely how I feel about my situation, my 14-team league. Basically, the best scenario is to just win. If you win, you're in. And then you can just battle. And I kind of being in that 7-6 range, especially because I feel like there's no pressure. It's like you kind of, I know a lot of fantasy is sometimes it's just whatever. Team gets hot and you just win. But I think there's a lot of added pressure when you're that 1 and 2 seed. So if I can get in there as a 6 and 7, I'll feel really, really good. But got to get there first. So like I said, we'll be talking about fantasy next week with bust and some surprises. But starting off the podcast, kind of want to get into the NFL, of course, as we're winding down to the playoffs. And, just watching the games over the weekend, there was a lot of statements made, a lot of teams that were positioning themselves as being number 1 and number 2 seeds. And started Thursday, or I guess say last Thursday, with the Lions in that game against the Bears, which was pretty disgusting if he was a Bears fan.
Classic.
It's like P-Bush has kind of repeated over this podcast a couple of times on and off air. It's very tough being a Bears fan. And like I said, I hit the Slack group chat and was like, I just don't see how Eberflus survives this. And
they did it.
It probably was the worst.
That was bad
management I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen anything worse than that.
Like his post conference, they asked about.
Yeah, and he doubled down.
He's like, I don't think I did anything wrong. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what is he serious? Is he that delusional, or he's just trying to fight for his job? I don't know if it's one or the other.
And Caleb was just looking to the sideline, like, give me he didn't get a play call for 15 to 20 seconds.
He froze.
And at that point, Eberflus, you call a timeout. He's a rookie.
Yeah, he had one timeout left, right? He had one timeout.
Now, people were blaming Caleb for that sack. Man, I don't know if you know, but Darnell Wright, our best offensive lineman by far, got injured at the end, and then the guy came in and just completely missed the Lions' edge. And if he doesn't get sacked, they have a chance. But, man, he's still looking good, though. He's still looking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those drives.
He had a good game.
At the end, he looked very confident. So that kind of suggests that if he gets a pretty good or at least decent coach, he'll be able to make the trajectory that he needs to be making. But speaking of that Bears squad, they were playing the Lions, and even though that was kind of, I guess, a little too close for cover for the Lions, you're still established that they're one of the better teams in the NFL. So I got to kind of thinking of some matchups in the future. And granted, the playoffs haven't started and things can change, but right now these are some of the top teams in the league in the AFC or NFC. So I was thinking, which Super Bowl matchup? So this is a matchup for the final game. Do you think it's more likely Bills versus Eagles or Chiefs versus Lions? And Peebush, you can go ahead and start us off.
Let me just start right here, man. I'm going to tell you the one I don't like. The Chiefs and Lions, man. I'm switching a little bit. And there's a good reason for this. One, the Chiefs, you saw Travis Kelce walking through that tunnel after that game. That man did not look like a happy individual. Maybe he wasn't happy to have to go talk to Taylor Swift. I don't know. Or he's realized that this team ain't really what they have been the last 5-6 years, man, since Mahomes has ascended. They're just not the same team. They're not winning Well, they're winning games, but they're not
winning games.
They're not handling the games like they should be. Now, sure. If they had Rashee Rice, I think this is a completely different team. You know, some people might toss Hollywood Brown into that, but I think Xavier Worthy has stepped up enough later in this season. He's getting open, right? But him and Mahomes, they're still not on the same page. But it's a rookie and 6-7 year quarterback. They're going to take a little bit of time for some chemistry. D-Hop was a nice addition. I'll give him that. But this defense is actually what scares me about the Chiefs, because you might not be able to run the ball very effectively against them, but you damn sure can throw the ball. And Aiden O'Connell looked pretty damn good in the second half against that team. Now, sure, I don't know. But he got Jacoby Myers going early. Then they decided to shift all their focus onto Jacoby Myers. I don't know why the hell they did that when you got Brock Bowers on the other side, who's damn near a wide receiver. And he just absolutely cooked the Chiefs. I mean, you're talking about one poor communication between offensive line and quarterback away from losing that game against a team that actually usually has Kansas City's number a little bit. They always
play them well every year. Yep.
And let's be honest, the whole NFC West or AFC West plays each other well. We saw the Broncos almost pull it off as well earlier this year. So, the Chiefs, they're giving me shaky vibes. I'm not saying they're a fluke. I'm not saying they're frauds. They're not a cute story zoo. But when it comes down to a big game against a much better opponent, we saw what the Bills did to them, man. And that wasn't even really a close game. I mean, it was a nine-point game in the end. I think, the biggest loss for the Chiefs or biggest deficit, I should say, for the Chiefs this year, either way. And then on the Lions side, man, after watching that Bears game, I was watching it with my dad. And the whole first half, the Bears were not pressuring Jared Goff. And the whole time I said, if he has any amount of time beyond 3 seconds in the pocket, this team is going to make the Super Bowl. I said that if the Bears want to win this game, they were getting blown out in the first half, especially in the quarter. Then they started pressuring. And what did Jared Goff do? Even if you don't get sacks on him, we've talked about in the past that he kind of does the old Tom Brady, right? Just falls over. But then you see him just getting pressure. He panic throws the ball.
He ain't that guy.
And he's not that guy. He can't
throw on the run.
He can't throw on the run.
He doesn't have that in his skill set.
You put Brock Purdy on this team, a healthy Brock Purdy, I think they might even be better. But that's besides the point. We're not talking about that. I just think that it comes down to Jared Goff. And if you're talking about who he might have to go up against, cough, cough, Jalen Carter pushing up through the middle in a potential NFC Championship game. In the middle, he can't even step in through the pocket. That's actually his best way that he can play, moving in and around the pocket, is stepping through the pressure. But he can't do that against one of the best young nose tackles in the league. So if you're comparing them to the Eagles, who I think are, pun intended, flying high right now, behind Saquon Barkley, potentially an MVP.
Yeah, he's MVP.
I know you're into Josh Allen, and I'm going to talk about him in a second. But Saquon Barkley, man, is just a one-man wrecking machine. Then you got Jalen Hurts, who's still obviously a threat in the red zone. They really need to get A.J. Brown going. They might be losing Dallas Goedert to IR. I'm not saying that's a crucial loss, but he is another guy that you have to respect on their offense. He scored this past week. And they need Devontae Smith back. But this defense, the turnaround that they've made in the second half of the season so far, has been impeccable. I mean, Vic Fangio has done great wonders with the secondary. I brought up similar issues actually for the Lions at the beginning of the year with their rookie cornerbacks, kind of a new faces of the secondary, kind of similar with the Eagles, but they've figured it out. So I know the Lions defense is improving. I just think the Eagles defense has improved even further. So I picked Lions at the beginning of the season to make the Super Bowl. I think it's a toss-up, or maybe, in my opinion, 55-45 in favor of the Eagles at this point in the season. And the Bills are the Bills, man. They took down the best team in the AFC, and the Chiefs handed them their first and only loss so far this year. And this is without Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, man. So you're talking about removing two of his better weapons. I do personally think they really need to get Amari Cooper more involved. I know it was a big snow game on Sunday Night Football, so not really ideal, but they can only rely on Josh Allen and James Cook so much. But hey, man, it's been working. So I just think I'm super high on the Bills. The Ravens showed me something that I didn't really like. Steelers, who knows? I don't know, but I just think the Bills are the strong team overall in the playoffs right now. So I'm gonna go with the Bills and the Bills and Eagles Super Bowl matchup. That would be a great game. That would be a great game.
That would be because I remember the beginning of the year, the NFC for me, I wasn't really sold on any teams, but I picked the Eagles to make it.
You did?
Yeah, I did pick the Eagles mainly because of the Saquon Barkley and the all-in attitude.
Yeah,
I just like teams going all in and going for a Super Bowl because that's what it takes to get it done. You can't play it safe. You have to put all your chips in the middle, and Saquon's on pace for 2,000 rushing yards.
Yeah,
like that's
really break the record.
Yeah, this is a guy that a lot of people said his best days were over, mostly from injuries. Like he just hasn't been healthy for like consecutive seasons for many, many years, and in such a bad offense of the New York Giants. You put this guy in with that offensive line, and you're seeing special things. And this Eagles offense, and now their defense looks really, really well. So they're playing two sides of the football field right now. So Saquon Barkley, like, okay, MVP, nah. Give him offensive player of the year. MVP is a quarterback award. It is what the sport is. Like, don't blame the sport. Like, the quarterback's the most valuable position, and we all know who the MVP right now is. Mr. Josh Allen, Mr. Snowball, Mr. Snow Game with a rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and a passing touchdown. Come on. Like, Josh Allen legit is a superhero out there throwing to, like, as you mentioned, like, he doesn't have a receiver one. He doesn't have a receiver,
but he's not.
He's not really that guy right now. He's not really putting up numbers at all.
Yeah,
like, he throws more to his running backs, and like James Cook and Ray Davis, who's really good too as a backup running back. So he really likes using those guys as options. So what he's done this year has been phenomenal. Like Bills, Eagles, like I am a little torn because Sean, I don't know if he did this on purpose, man. You got the Eagles on one side and then my Chiefs on the other side. So you got two of my teams, and I gotta pick one of them. Something about the Lions too. I'm just like, I don't know, just the ineptitude of this franchise that I just can't accept that I can't see good things happening to them because right now they roll it. Like they dominate. Even like with the Bears game, like pretty much they didn't really try in the second half. Like this is pretty much
they got shut down. That's
no. That first half was an ass. They just took it easy. They took it easy, man. They took it easy.
I don't know about that too.
No, I'm telling you, they took it easy. Like I'm sorry, the Bears are very forgettable. They're on a 6-game losing streak.
Of course, I'm not saying they're forgettable, but they didn't just give up playing the game.
They didn't give up playing the game, but they didn't play with a sense of urgency as much as that first half of
Thanksgiving in Detroit is huge, dude. That's like their
and they were up so much, and like the Bears, like Eberflus and that clown on the other side, man, make you laugh.
Yeah,
so, I'm sorry, Detroit just like the Bears. Nah, they ain't scary at all. They ain't scary at all. But something about the Lions, I can't. Can you imagine them in the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I can't now. But you guys just have it's the division of it. Like you guys are grown up around that. I can envision it because
wins. Like I know on paper, like
they just got so much talent.
That's the skill position is beautiful. The skill position is beautiful, but because I know what you mean by the Chiefs. Because not gonna lie, this Chiefs team kind of remind me of the Eagles of last year. When the Eagles were able to squeak by these little weird games like last possession, so a little luck in there, a little in the ending. So that does give me like I just remember last week, like the Chiefs don't cover the spread. They just play down the competition. They play around. He's barely speaking to even that. It was a freaking last possession snafu that happens. That somehow benefits the Chiefs every single time I see them play football. So but I swear to God, like not gonna lie, their luck it might kind of run out. But I can't go against my bet, man. Are you kidding me? I picked the Chiefs for a reason. I keep
forgetting you made the bet.
I picked the Chiefs for a reason, and I'm keeping with that bet. And I will not go against my bet, even though seeing the Lions in there, that would surprise me. The
Chiefs would surprise me.
This year? Stop it. The Chiefs surprise me.
This year, it would be a little.
This year, it would surprise me.
This year, because outside of the Bills, because I think the Bills are playing really, really good football. I'm like, The Baltimore Ravens, no.
If Russell Wilson can throw 400 yards and 3 touchdowns,
Pittsburgh, I told you, is the weird wild card. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they beat the Chiefs because that defense is so insane, and Russell is playing okay. Like,
it would shock me if they lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It would not shock me if they lose to the Buffalo Bills. That's all I
think it's because they don't.
The only team I fear. It's the only team I fear. Like, the Bills are freaking unbelievable on 2 sides of the football.
Yeah.
Like, Russell Wilson is still a wild card. Like, he do got the deep ball passing, but there's a reason why Chris Boswell is kicking a bunch of field goals. They can't cash it in.
They scored 44 points.
They scored 44 on Cincy, who we know is awful on defense, but still, we know that. We know that. In
the playoffs, you're not going to play against a defense that bad.
How's the Raiders' defense?
Max Crosby, and that's it.
Exactly.
The Chiefs' offense ain't nothing to.
Exactly. So the
situational football, though. Situational football. Situational football. I still take the Chiefs in situational football.
Well, yeah. Situations. That goes perfectly into my point. Like, the Chiefs, even though this is not what I mean, because this statement sounds like I mean they're front running, but like I'm talking about the theory of it. Like, the Chiefs are very good when they're ahead. They're beating their chest and they can stay on top of you. I feel like if a good team, not like a Raiders or a Bengals, whoever gets on top of the Chiefs, like nobody's going to take that serious because the Chiefs can come back on them. But I feel like in the playoffs, I think if a Bills or any of these teams we're just talking about gets on top of them, I think it's going to be harder this year for them to come back, especially when they're not going to have the home field advantage. Because it's like, we already saw them go to Buffalo, and more times than not, if they do go back to Buffalo, it might be a snowstorm. So, like, the Bills are going to already be prepared to play in that. And I think if that's a scenario, then, yeah, I'm more than likely going to pick the Bills. And like I said, with the Steelers, out of all the defenses that would potentially make it to the playoffs in the AFC, they would have the best defense. It's just something about the Steelers where their quarterback situation has been weird the last couple of years, really since post-Ben. But, like, it's because, to me, they don't have that main guy at quarterback. Like, Russell's a competent guy. He's a solid guy. He's a guy who, if he's not turning the ball over and he's throwing the moon balls, he's a good quarterback. And it's weirdly enough, I feel like he's made a good resurgence for Najee Harris. So their rushing game is there. Like you said, TJ Watt at any moment can get a strip sack. I feel like he gets like one every other 2 games. It could – I'm just – like I've always been saying this since the beginning. I kind of think like it's some teams that could bother the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs are really good at front running. They're good like when they get the ball first and they score first, Mahomes is beating his chest and he's on top. Like, yeah, but it's like I want to see them get down 14-0 against the Josh Allen.
I don't know about that, especially in the playoffs, because we've seen historically.
That's what I'm talking about.
They would go down double digits and they would.
Who'd they go down double digits last year to?
The 49ers in the Super Bowl. They were getting
the Super Bowl is, I mean, that's a one-off game. I'm talking about
and same thing with the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Like, they fall behind in the first half and a lot.
The Super Bowl is different because you're already there and it's a win or go home. I'm talking about in the AFC like divisional game where you're down 14-0. I haven't seen that. And plus they've always been at home and been up. Like, they've never really had to come back.
It's a throwback, but the Sean Watson, the Houston Texans, where they were down multiple touchdowns and coming back. So
you're pulling out historical stats.
Yeah. I'm just saying the Chiefs come back. I'm not gonna let you call the Chiefs. I don't love the Chiefs playing this year. Their record, I think, looks a little better than the team actually is. But I don't think. I think they could come back in games. I'm not gonna call them just a front runner. I'm not going to call them a front runner.
But I just haven't been in a lot of those situations. But
matches their level of performance this year.
They should be like
one loss. Like, I don't think this team is like that dominant.
They should be like 9-3. They should be aligned with the Steelers. Yeah. So, but if you take that into account, that sure, yeah, all right, and let's be honest, they've clutched up a couple games, and I would give the credit there more so than the games they've gotten away with. I mean that Raiders game,
like the Raiders. I think the Raiders and the Broncos, like those are just.
Right, so you're talking about flipping 2 games. You're talking about
God.
the Bills.
Yeah, pretty much. Insanity. Like, it keeps happening.
but that means you're giving the Bills the number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. That's the worst place you could have to go up in and play a road game for any team. Steelers, Ravens.
I give you that. I'll give you the Bills.
Well, you better hope that the Chiefs win out because the Bills are only a game behind and they own the tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. So if they lose home field advantage, I'm not saying I immediately write them off, but that means they also don't get their bye and they don't get home field advantage.
Yeah, they need a bye.
They need
and two, if it got weird and the Steelers and Chiefs had to play in the like, you don't want to play that team, and then now after you get after that war with the Steelers, you got to go then play the Bills. Perhaps like
that's tough.
You don't want that. Like that's because, like I said, that defense with the now, if the Steelers defense was kind of regressed and was okay, they'd be like whatever because it's like their offense, but it's like their offense is pretty simple. It's actually what I think about like with the Eagles, like. They have now Najee Harris is not Saquon Barkley, but they have an elite running game. They have elite weapons. And what I've always said about Jalen Hurts is I would like if he's only throwing 22 to 25 passes a game. You complete 13 or 14 of them. You get one push touchdown and maybe two tutties to one of the elite receivers. And that's how their game plan should be. And that's what the Eagles are doing. And it's not even to me about the offense because we all know about what the offense is going to be. But like, dude, I think people just brought it up. Like Jalen Carter is destroying the middle of these defenses. So to me, that guy coming along with Nakobe Dean on that front seven, and then you got Quinton Mitchell and Darius Slay as two lockdown corners with Cooper DeJean in the slot. Like that's a defense, and I don't like as much as we talk about, like you said, what Jared Goff and that NFC, and they more than likely will have home field advantage if they keep winning. Like if they were to match up. I don't see defensively. Like I know the Lions have like I would say elite, probably better than the Eagles off of the line. But I feel like what most quarterbacks will tell you, like, yes, they don't want the defensive end rushing off the end and knocking them out. But getting that pressure up the middle is where quarterbacks can't function. Like they hate when they're just being pressed in the middle and they can't step up into a pocket and throw a pass. And if Jalen Carter, and all due respect to the Lions center, I don't even know his name, but he could be a monster. But I'm just saying, if Jalen Carter is having a day, that is going to spell problems for Jared Goff. And on the other side, it's like, they got guys that I guess supplement Aiden Hutchinson, but I'm still taking that Eagle defense.
Is he out the rest of the year?
I
know he's been out.
I'm not sure if he's not.
Yeah,
I
don't
know if he got carted off or not, but it wasn't good. And that was, I guess they were playing Dallas or whatever that game, and they still blew out Dallas. But like I think the Eagles defense would be a problem for Detroit over the course of a game. So for me, it's like that's why I'm so big on the Eagles, because the guys that they have drafted in the secondary, the guys they drafted a couple of years with Nakobe Dean and Jalen Carter, they're starting to, bear fruit. So, like I said, look, the thing that, like I said, I've always said my piece about the Chiefs. Like the Bills, we know Josh Allen more than likely is going to be the MVP unless like Saquon rushed for 3,000, which he's not. Like to me, the Bills made a huge statement beating the Chiefs, and I do think if they somehow were to get the number one seed, that is going to be a very difficult game for the Chiefs. Like especially with this year, and I'm just going off of like a lot of it. Sometimes how I think about these teams and how I used to think about the Chiefs is like, well, they have Mahomes and he just always figures out how to a way to happen, like make it happen. And I'm trying to get myself out of that thought because it's easy for me just to default, because even if you just look at this year with the amount of games that they've just squeaked out, it's just like you just keep thinking about, well, Mahomes is just going to figure it out. And it's like, well, what are my eyes telling me? My eyes are telling me that they play down the competition. They have been very fortunate with a bunch of, I guess you would say, godlike bounces to get them wins. And it's just like, if you go up against a team that's very competent and who's not going to make a bunch of mistakes, then that's going to bite you in the playoffs. Now, there is a real theory, and it's kind of like you can maybe say like a Michael Jordan theory, like that all sounds good in the regular season, but then when you got to face the guy like Mahomes, all of a sudden maybe the guys like Lamar and whoever they might not play as well. And like you said, I'm a big believer when the Chiefs get it, like I said, if for instance, if the Chiefs do play the Bills in the AFC Championship game and the Chiefs go up 7-0, they're winning the game. They're going to win because they're going to be in their head. They're going to be in their head because that's what the Chiefs do.
The only hole in that analogy I would say is that you knew you had to beat Michael 4 times.
Yeah.
You had to beat him 4 times.
Well, you got to beat Mahomes 4 quarters. So I mean, you got to beat him 4 quarters.
But the whole thing is, you mentioned this. When you play against this Chiefs team, your offense plays scared. Like, we got to score every freaking time or we're going to lose. Yeah. They're going to go down on 4th downs. They're going to try to take risky plays. 4th and 1s, they're going every single time.
Because Mahomes and them are going to be loose. They're going to be loose.
Exactly. Because they've been here before. These teams are trying to get there. So if you especially the Ravens, I'm telling you, the Chiefs are in the Ravens' head. And Lamar has some weird thing where he just doesn't play that well against the Chiefs. And he starts forcing things. And he's not the relaxed Lamar where I see like this guy's the
That's why I think him getting like a 7 seed might be a benefit. Like I think him being a number 1 seed and everybody's like, well, you need to beat the Chiefs. Like I think because everybody now is going to be like Josh Allen, Mahomes, like everybody's going to be focused on him. Maybe he'll be able to sneak, but I still don't think the Ravens did because their defense just is not good.
Awful.
So it's like,
it's awful.
Like, and it's kind of. This is like an anomaly because I've never seen their defense be this
They
bad.
just have to
weird.
control
like,
the ball. Like you got King Henry there for a reason, and you just got to make your defense not stay on the field as long as possible. Just keep the ball at Lamar and King Henry's hands.
The only issue was the Eagles just controlled the ball better with Saquon.
Oh yeah,
that's why
they basically did what they basically took the Ravens game plan.
You got hurt. Yeah, you got Hurts and Saquon, 2 elite.
Yeah,
people at the position.
Like I said, I love Hurts in that how he plays. Like I said, some quarterbacks they got to throw 58 times and it's 4 touchdowns. Sometimes there's quarterbacks like Jameis, and then there's quarterbacks like Hurts, where it's like I kind of tend, if I want to have a quarterback lead my franchise and winning games, I want him throwing in that 22, 25 range pass attempts because it's like that means we're running the ball really well, which they are doing. So we'll see. Like I said, those teams are kind of the prohibitive favorites in their respective divisions, and I'm excited to see like how they fare in the playoffs. So bouncing on to the NFC, top 2 teams we kind of just talked about, the Lions and the Eagles, have kind of separated themselves from the pack. And like I said, we would not be shocked if they made the NFC Championship game, but I was looking at the standings below them, and it's just like a lot of teams with good records, Vikings and Packers, but it's just like, do you have faith in them? And then do you see Atlanta leading their division still, and see the Seahawks somehow? They just felt like they were dead 3 weeks ago, but they're very much in the playoff contention now. So with all those NFC teams behind the Eagles and Lions jumbled up, I kind of wanted to see who could you see as that third team in the NFC making a magical run to the Super Bowl? And Zhu, why don't you start this one off?
Might be a hometown bias, man, but I'm going with those Green Bay Packers, man. I'm going with those Green Bay Packers right now. Like, when we talk about the NFC West, all I see is disappointment. Yeah. Every single team is a disappointment. You got the San Francisco Niners, who probably the prohibitive favorite. They just lost everyone. Lost CMC. He wasn't even playing that well this year. Jordan, they're on to Isaac Guerrero, man. Like, all the fab going to Isaac Guerrero this weekend. So, he's going to be the RB1 of that Niners team. So that team is irrelevant. And Arizona, Rams, Seattle.
They're about where they should be.
They're just 500 level team. My thoughts about Geno Smith, very mediocre. So the NFC West, and do we even need to talk about the NFC South? It's just a sad division.
Except one quick point. Shout out the Atlanta GM. He made a right decision drafting Michael Penix. I'm going to say that right now because they needed a safety blanket.
He made the right decision until we seen him play.
No, you're right.
We got to see him play.
They're covering their asses with this Kirk Cousins debacle, man. Let me just put it that way.
They're trying. I don't know. They gave him all that money, so he's going to be on the team.
That's fake money. He'll be on the team next year.
Yeah,
for sure. But it might be curtains after next year.
So
Bucks should take that division.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that division. I do like the Bucks, especially with Mike Evans coming back. Baker Mayfield's having a great year, so that's the only team. That's kind of a cute story over there. But the NFC North, man, the only team that's irrelevant is your Chicago Bears with the 4-8. Yep, irrelevant. But if you look into the other 2 teams outside the lines, Minnesota Vikings at 10-2, and the Green Bay Packers, especially the Vikings, because I remember Sam Darnold a little shaky in that little losing streak, and then coming out 5 straight wins. Jordan Addison, he really come out. That's the player who's really come out. I remember that dude was probably in the beginning of the year might be going to jail, but now he's balling now. Get out of jail free card, getting 100-yard games and tutties. That'll keep you out of jail if you prop in those games like that. So Jordan Addison is playing extremely, extremely well. And Justin Jefferson is you see his numbers going down and see the other players around him going up. So that's really interesting. What I love about the coach of Kevin McConnell. So the thing is with these 2 teams, elite coaches. Matt LaFleur, man, this guy really is he's a tactician. He is what you call high IQ. You see high IQ in him and see the exact opposite in the Chicago Bears guy, Mr. Eberflus, man.
He's not there anymore, too. You can't say it anymore.
I don't know. Last week I saw him there making some. I was watching. I was like, what is going on? Are they out of a timeout? I at first thought they were out of a timeout. I was like, what is going? He just standing there. I'm like, Ellie's run up.
I got pissed and it's not even my team.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Blatant tanking, Zoo. Blatant tanking.
Yeah, maybe it is. They ain't doing nothing this year, so maybe get some more weapons, offensive line help for Caleb Williams. Definitely give that brother some better protection. But if you're looking at both these franchises, right now, both elite coaches, Jordan Love, sometimes he looks awesome, but then sometimes he throws it's just those interceptions. Like he's very volatile. Yeah, I think better Jameis. Like he has those Jameis things where he just fuck it, chuck it deep. Guys, he makes those throws. Like Jordan Love has a really nice arm. So his physical skill set, obviously, I think Jordan Love is just a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's more of a system guy that they molded the system around him, while Jordan Love still has that like superstar ability, making those deep throws, especially with like the number of weapons that this team has. With you got boomer bust guys like Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, who's really coming out this year. Josh Jacobs, their big signing this year. He's been an absolute tank, as you know. So like this offense is really, really coming together. And Tucker Kraft, I believe he's
he's
a nice tight end. He's a nice tight end. He's nice tight end.
Potential.
Yeah, he's a nice young tight end. Like way better than Luke Musgrave. That's all I gotta say. Way better than Luke Musgrave. So he's got a variety of players where Jordan Love has a really intelligent coach, can get him in situations to succeed. So I'm leaning the Packers right now, especially because I like the pedigree of also last year of showing up in the playoffs against the Dallas Cowboys team that was playing extremely well, and they brought that experience into this year. So I'm going to pick the experience from last year, and they pretty much take it off from what they did last year. So Minnesota Vikings, I'm more in a wait and see approach with this franchise right now. So yeah, give me those Packers, baby. Give me those Packers.
The Vikings.
Give me the volatility.
The Vikings are a little bit. They're a more talented team, of course, but I could see them having actually a little similar to the Daniel Jones when they took down the Vikings in the playoffs. They went 12-4. They won, one game, and then they realized, oh wait, this team actually has no chance at running for the Super Bowl this year. You could sneak by a first round victory in the divisional, but I just don't really see it. So I agree with these. I mean, and shout out to their rush defense in Minnesota has been great. It's pretty difficult to run against this team. I will say, I think Jefferson, is going to come back to kind of the level we saw him at now that teams are truly going to have to respect Addison. So maybe that opens up the field even more for this team offensively. I know you mentioned Sam Darnold, good system quarterback. Man, he's made some hell of a good final drives in games this year for the win.
Gotta give him that, yeah.
You got to give him the clutch. He's got a little bit of clutch in him this year. I mean, that last drive, sure, the overtime against the Bears, yes.
Yeah, a lot of bad teams.
Yeah, just like the Chiefs, man. Come on, like what you can't keep saying that and then not me mentioning.
Zhu. I'm with Zhu on this because I'm not a Darnold guy, but I get what you're saying, people.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like you beat the teams that are in front of you and you beat the situations you're in front. He made some bad mistakes early in the game against Arizona, but he showed up and showed out. He finally got Jefferson the ball in the second half because they realized they had to respect Addison, and that's exactly how this team needs to run. In my opinion, the guy that really needs to clean up his act on Minnesota is the fumbling by Aaron Jones. He needs to keep the football in his hands because when they fumble, they're usually run with Aaron Jones a lot on their half of the field. And then as they get closer to midfield, you'll start to see the throws kind of a bit more as they get down. That's how this Minnesota team. So if you're saying that he gets the majority of his carries on their side of the field and he's having fumbling issues, he's fumbled 3 times in the last 3 games and lost them. That's not good. And that's what can flip games in close competition games in the playoffs. So I'm out on the Vikings as a Super Bowl contender. I wanted to quickly mention the Commanders. I think they're kind of the third team that you could throw into this discussion. But
you think this year is a little early?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you take like the core, like the top 2, and then I'd say the next tier, they're the bottom of that next tier. It's like in my opinion, it goes Packers, Vikings, Commanders in that order in tier 2 of the NFC.
Okay.
But for me, it was huge to see Brian Robinson healthy. And
he's a hammer. He's a hammer.
So shout out real quick. That trade we talked about last week, Zoo, whoever traded Brian Robinson and AJ Brown, he might be
he's back. He's back.
He's losing that trade. So that was a huge guess on that part. And it's huge for the Commanders offense because Terry McLaurin has been an absolute
awesome.
Red zone
2 touchdowns.
He
is really like showing that, like when you have, because right now the Commanders, based on points scored, top 5 offense now.
Yes.
Just like getting a rookie quarterback. Top 5 offense, and you got that elite receiver 1, and he is putting up some ridiculous numbers.
And it's actually opened up the game for Brian Robinson, who is a guy that usually would just get like 3 to 4 yards a carry, 15 carries for 65 yards. But now, because they have to respect the passing game of Jaden Daniels, it's actually opening up bigger holes for him to run through the offense. He had a 40-yard touchdown this past week, which I don't think I've seen him have that long of a run. Maybe on a receiving catch he's run that long, but on a true under center, handed off run, I don't think I've seen B-Rob do that. So I'll say this year, I think they're going to be a cute story zoo. They could upset a team. You know what they remind me of? A little bit of the Packers last year, man. Maybe they could do a little something like that and come in and blow up a Lions type team. Could be interesting. Very interesting.
Wow. Wow.
But I'm going with the Packers, Zoo. I got to agree with you. I honestly, you call Jordan Love a superstar? I'm not there yet.
No. I didn't say he's a superstar. He has superstar plays. Like he can make those big throws in those situations on the move where guys like a Jared Goff is limited physically.
Correct.
Jordan Love has the physical traits, even though it could be a pick too. So
exactly,
go the other way. But I'd like when I have teams like this as a
gunslinger.
Yeah.
He's Jay Cutler.
I need the volatility in these guys as the third team that can make a run because I need the volatility because I don't think they're as good as the other teams.
I'm telling you, Zoo, I think his true comparison right now is and he cares a lot more, but it is Jay Cutler at this point in his career. He just slings it. And he's willing to take risks, and it paid off. Is it a Super Bowl winning team? No. But if they rely on Josh Jacobs, this is going to be a scary offense.
That's the dude, man.
Yeah, he's having a very underrated season. Obviously, Derrick Henry and Saquon making all the noise.
And Joe Mixon.
Josh Jacobs has been really picking up the last couple of weeks.
Top three are Henry, Saquon, Mixon, and then I put Josh Jacobs maybe the tier right below those guys this year, but kind of in a 1A, 1B tier.
Very productive.
The only thing for me is I think people don't know how to approach the wide receiver room in Green Bay because you could say, well, they don't know who to cover on any given night because it could be Romeo Doubs one night. I know he's injured right now, or it could be Christian Watson, or it could be Jaden Reed. Tucker Kraft has really fallen off the past 4 weeks or so, but he's still a threat in the red zone. I actually think that inhibits their team because you can play more zone coverage against these guys. I mean, Christian Watson, man, if he's dropping 50-yard bombs that are right in his hands, I don't know. I can't trust the guy. I'm sorry, but he's not a good wide receiver. He just isn't.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about Jaden Reed, who's he's a Debo White. He's a Debo.
He's very unique.
Very volatile. Extremely volatile. He needs to see the end zone to make production. He only gets 5 to 6 targets a game. That's not a wide. They need a wide receiver one for Jordan Love. They need a Devontae Adams type player, which we talked about. What if he had never actually left and had stayed in Green Bay and stuck it out? That would have been interesting to see. But I just think that this defense, Sean, I know you're a Jair Alexander guy. I'm not sure if he's 100% back yet, but they need him his knee.
Yeah, he's got a little. I mean, he's practiced and stuff, but he's got a knee lingering.
But for playoffs, though, if he's healthy by playoff time, they really need him. They need their shutdown corner. Xavier McKinney has been an absolute monster coming over from the Giants, playing in that secondary and the back end. So, I think this team is more well-rounded than the Vikings, even though the Vikings have better talent at their respective positions. I just think the Packers, that would be a hell of a good matchup, too. Packers and Vikings. I'd love to see that in the playoffs. That'd be great. Love to see the division rivalry, but I'll take the Packers. But if you ask me this next year, I'm taking the Commanders.
Trending up for sure. Up for sure. It's a clean sweep by the Packers. I was high on them earlier in the year. I think I put a little money before Jordan Love got hurt on some MVP odds, but it kind of derailed that. But I will say Jordan Love, to Zoo's point, he does make superstar plays. I just think he needs more time to actually play and get more reps because I think the more reps he gets, the more plays he'll be able to make. Like I said, but the receivers, I do hear your point about how they really don't have one guy who can just go for 150 or something. But I do think this speaks to two things. It's Jordan Love is forcing him to make different types of reads and find the open guys. And I think the reason why he's able to find those open guys is because Green Bay always drafts receivers really well. Dontavius Wicks is another guy who could go for probably 6 for 80 on a given Sunday. They just have a lot of different options, and I kind of like that. I do like that they have guys like a Jaden Reed, who I think is like a Debo, Dontavius Wicks, who can kind of go down the field, he can work in the slot, Romeo Doubs down the field, Christian Watson is definitely down the field. Now, out of all of those guys, to your point, I'm not a Christian Watson guy. I think out of all of those receivers I named, he's probably one of the guys that's probably last for me in terms of guys I trust. But like I said, Tucker Kraft, fantasy-wise, he hadn't been great because he's been on my bench in a couple of leagues, but I think he definitely has a better skill set than Luke Musgrave. And to me, the biggest factor is going to be Josh Jacobs. If he continues to run like he is running right now, that is the key to being any type of doing anything in the playoffs. You got to have a consistent run game. And with those teams in the NFC North, now if things kind of stay packed, I think you'll be going. I mean, they're an outside team that can play in the cold. So if they got to go to the Eagles, whatever. But if they potentially have to match it with the Lions, which is going to be, I think, in my picks coming up. I think it's one of those spread picks. I'm not sure if the Packers or Lions are involved in that, but I just think Green Bay, the confidence they had last year going into Dallas when pretty much everybody was picking against them and they just went in there and kind of destroyed them. I think that might, if once they get to the playoffs, that might be able to carry over. And I'm big on the team that has expectations like Green Bay does, but it's not like anybody's thinking of them as a Super Bowl team. Like that's why I'm interested in your Washington take, because to your point, like if Washington gets in the playoffs, it could be kind of similar to what CJ Stroud did. Like, he can maybe win one playoff game, and then who knows? Because it's like it could get weird in the playoffs, and it's like I think more times than not, the preseason expectations of who we think is going to be in the Super Bowl usually happens, but it's like upsets happen along the way. So, I'm looking at like out of the Packers, Vikings, Commanders, that little cluster, I guess Seahawks if you want to throw them in there. I'm probably the highest on the Packers and the Commanders just because of the quarterbacks. Like, I think Sam Darnold, I'm just going to stick to my guns, and I may be proven completely wrong that, hey, he might just be that dude, and he might have found his mate in Kevin O'Connell, which if I'm a Vikings fan, I might be a little conflicted because it's like, what if Sam Darnold really does ball and get us to the NFC Championship game and we just drafted the guy in the first round? It's like, I don't know, because now you have to go with Sam Darnold next year, and now that rookie sit on the bench again, and then what if Sam Darnold does it's kind of okay next year? It's like it's just a weird dynamic they got to deal with. But if you're winning games and getting to the playoffs, the fans are not going to care. So for me, like I said, I'm not a Sam Darnold guy, so I don't have faith in him in the playoffs. But if I had to pick two teams, and I would not be shocked if they made some moves, or like I said, Super Bowl, the Packers, I kind of do think if the Packers got hot, they can get to the Super Bowl. It just depends on the matchups in the playoffs. But the Commanders, definitely, I could see an upset. I could see an upset with the Commanders. And then maybe a close game in the first half, and then they get beat in the second half in a divisional game or whatever. But the NFC to me, it kind of speaks to there are good quarterbacks in that league, but I also think like the coaches in that league are really, really good. So there's going to be some tough matchups that I don't know. I don't know if all of us are going to be ready for. And oddly enough, even though like I've been talking about the Chiefs and like how like they may not make it back to the Super Bowl, I'm more excited to see the NFC and what happens versus the AFC, because I kind of just feel like it's probably going to be Bills, Chiefs, one of those teams, and like the NFC, anything could happen. Anything could happen in the NFC. Like I said, the Lions are the prohibitive favorite, but who knows, man? And that's another thing about one last thing about Green Bay, like their defense too. Even though Jair is hurt, and like you said, they got guys that come in, they always just still seem solid. Like there were guys in that Miami game on the defensive line, they were just making plays. They were just getting like causing havoc. Now I know it was the Dolphins and their subpar team, but it just feels like they draft. They're like the team. I feel like every year with their draft picks and their players, they're always B+. Like they never have like a Jalen Carter. Like I mean, I guess what was the dude? Raji. The big D tackle they had a long time ago, BJ Raji. Like he's probably the biggest star they had in terms of being on defensive line. But it feels like they always draft a bunch of B+ guys, and it's like they work well as a unit. Like they never have like a superstar end or like a superstar linebacker.
They have Zadarius Smith.
They did.
He was probably their best. Oh, Clay Matthews. I mean, he was a pass rusher.
Yeah. He was a great guy.
But still, few and far between.
Yeah, they just draft really well.
They spend on their secondary, and they spend on their quarterback.
Yeah.
That's where they put their money. Maybe running back.
And it does help that the last three quarterbacks you have has just been money. That covered that. You know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they don't draft as well as we think. It's just they always hit at quarterback where they just win these games. I don't know. Maybe that's just what it is. I don't know. That covers a lot of flaws. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this NFC goes, especially from the top two teams with the Eagles and the Lions. So. With that,
there is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
be getting into our best bets for Week 14. A little quick recap for me. Felt really good watching the Thanksgiving game, even though it was frustrating watching Caleb Williams and that drive just falter. That 10.5 was just too juicy. So that was a nice little cash out. And then I was up and down with the Steelers and the Bengals, but the Steelers came out money line, so I was super excited about that. So I had a nice little cash out if you follow that. Like I said, I like both of those games. I think I said maybe the Bears was my favorite. I can't remember in terms of like they was going to cover that because, like I said, 10.5 is just too much. But if you parlayed that, you probably had a nice little payday. So those were my two little nice wins for that. But Peebles, give us a little recap on what you did.
Man. Anthony Richardson was a sneaky play this week, and Drake May. Those are my two nice lineups. Drake May just consistent 20, 22 points a game. I don't run any receivers with him. I just play him by himself because he's going to get the rushing. He's going to throw to some random dude, Booty or whatever the hell his name is, and Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry and all those guys. But man, the Baker one did not do anything. They just ran the ball down the Carolina Panthers' necks. And also the Justin Herbert. I had a Herbert lineup stacked with McConkey. McConkey had a great game, but Justin Herbert just couldn't get anything going. A lot of sacks from the Atlanta Falcons. So kind of I think it was slightly down this week. But on to the next one, man. I did hit nice with Bucky, Mixon, Puka, T, Brian Thomas Jr., who should have had probably 30 points, but Trevor Lawrence couldn't hit him for crap. And,
he's so good. Brian Thomas Jr. He is so good.
Steal of the draft.
So good.
Steal of the draft for sure. And once again, a guy that was behind another stud at him at his college spot.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to look at the number 2 guy, man.
Yep.
But this week, man, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be on Hurts against Carolina, but I think it's a bit of a kind of like Baker. This is going to be the Saquon Barkley week. He's $9,000. The only player I've ever seen at $9,000, same price, was CMC last year and Tyreek Hill in years past. So if that gives you any idea of where Saquon's at, do not doubt him. But extremely expensive. Baker against Vegas, I think could be interesting just because the Bucs give up a lot of points. But I'm actually going to go with Sam Darnold against the Falcons. I think they know the Packers are creeping on them, and I think they know they got to continue winning these games. And Darnold's been kind of the guy who's he's been, like I said, he's been clutching up games a lot. So I'm going to pair him up with Addison. I'm not going to pay up for Jefferson. I like the Addison play to Zoo's points earlier. He's been on the rise, as a lot of people expected him to be until he had the weird beginning of the season. So I'm pairing up Darnold with Addison. I really like Drake London, can kind of bring that back. Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, who's it going to be? But Drake London still gets his. He still gets a lot of targets no matter who's there. And if Penix is in, they could be chucking the ball against a Minnesota team that does not have a very good pass defense. That's where they can get exposed. Caleb Williams exposed them a couple weeks ago. And Trey McBride did last week, as well as Marvin Harrison. But on the running back side, man, you're going to have to pay up. I mean, Kyron's expensive against Buffalo, kind of their only weakness. Saquon, I already mentioned. I really like Kamara this week against the Giants. Give me Kamara, just a PPR monster. No Taysom Hill. I think that's huge.
That's huge. Goal line guy.
Goal line guy, exactly. So there might be some more Kamara opportunities. So if you're going to pay up for one, sure, you can go with Saquon and probably be totally fine. But you save $1,000 with Kamara. And then kind of as a cheap wide receiver, we've never talked about this guy, but this guy has scored in like 6 straight games. Nick Westbrook-Akine, man. He's just putting up consistent 15 a game. A lot of targets, a lot of touchdowns. Will Levis seems to just love throwing the ball to him. Even when they're down, he just gets he gets both their touchdowns, and it's just ridiculous. So I'm going to plug in a cheap play that has a pretty high ceiling. I like that. And then I got Bowers in there, man. Against Tampa, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Bowers might feast this week in a must-win game for the Bucs. So this could end up turning into a bit of a little offensive showcase if Aiden O'Connell can keep his head on straight. And then I'm actually going to play Garendo. I'm going to go cheap to kind of offset the Kamara. He's playing the Bears. Bears have kind of been gashed in weeks past against running backs. So why not give it to the cheap guy and just play the floor? And so you can pay up at other positions. So it's going to be a weird week. The bye weeks are huge. You're losing out on the Commanders. You're losing out on the Ravens, the Texans, a few other teams as well. I think the Broncos are out as well. So Bo Nix can't keep going with Bo Nix, man. Not this week.
No, Will Lutz, man. I'm gonna miss Will Lutz. That guy's my kicker in a lot of leagues, so gonna miss that guy. But yeah, for sure agree with your guy on Isaac Guerrero. This is the guy now.
Yeah,
and we know about 49er Shanahan guys, like they just produce. It doesn't really matter who's behind there. It's the scheme. Like Jordan Mason, like who really knew who Jordan Mason was? But that guy,
Elijah Mitchell, in years
Elijah
past.
Mitchell. Like Raheem
Mostert.
Mostert, like everybody is very productive. So Isaac Guerrero is going to just pick up the mantle, become that guy. Obviously, he won't be CMC, but I like him as that cheap play because he's the sleeper guy that no one really knows about, except for he's a third string running back. But for me, I'll recap last week. Sean mentioned, Kansas City Chiefs barbecue chicken, man. They just don't cover spreads. Nope. They just don't. It's actually so beautiful that like it's one of the more predictable teams with the Chiefs. They didn't play their best against the Raiders team, as I mentioned. Whatever, like Aiden Connell shredded them. So like, I don't think they really took the team that seriously. I'm telling you,
good.
They didn't. Black Friday, like who they used to play on a Friday post Thanksgiving. They fold, man. Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift probably had a great Thanksgiving dinner. You think he's talking about?
Probably went the night before.
I don't think you think about those Raiders. So that game was a little closer, definitely closer than I thought. I was just like, they should have lost that game. But yeah, Chiefs, that was an easy cover. Yep. This week, though, not going to lie, some of these spreads are kind of fat. I'm going to stay away from the fat spreads and another cover like that. But for me right now, I'm going to pick a road favorite, which is a weird thing to say. I am picking the Cincinnati Bengals to cover the spread against the Dallas Cowboys, -5. This Cincinnati Bengals team, as bad as their defense is, their offense is like elite. Mm-hmm. Joe Burrows is having a career season. Like
he is.
He would be in the MVP conversation if that defense was just decent or average. Yep. The defense is so bad that even though he's putting up like these ridiculous numbers, this guy, like he's had 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
Chase Brown too.
Yeah, Chase Brown, the guy who's come out with Zach Moss saying now this dude has 6 touchdowns. As a backup running back, he's 677 yards, and Jamar Chase is having probably his best year since his rookie year.
T's been playing well too.
T. Higgins is a receiver too. Obviously contributes to the vertical assault that this team goes. So I think this is the type of offense. They got the over-under at 49.5, and I feel those points are going to be more of the freaking Bengals than this Cooper Rush-led offense, which since Dak Prescott is gone, the offense of the Cowboys is very ugly. It's very ugly. They struggle to move the ball. Yeah, move on. Rico Dowdle's their RB1. He's whatever. CeeDee Lamb's production has dipped with Cooper Rush leading the helm. So, like, I don't think that offense could keep up with that Bengals offense, which I think could light up this Cowboys defense. And even though it's on the road, Cowboys at home this year are 1-5. So it's not really a home field advantage this year where you're 1-5 at home. And that's with a couple games with Dak. So you're at Cooper Rush. I think this Bengals team, even though they're 4-8, I think this team is really, really talented on offense, like really elite. Like this is like a Super Bowl offense. Too bad the defense is so bad they just bounce it out. And even though they're a 4-8 team, I think they're more of a 500 level team. I don't think the record does them justice of how good of a team they are. Like
you know what they're the opposite of the Chiefs, man. They can't win close games.
They can. Man.
I'm pretty sure if you flipped one-score games, the Chiefs would be bottom, and the Bengals would be up at the top of the AFC. I'm like 90% sure. Mm-hmm. I like that pick. Yeah, I mean, is there any major injury? Like, why are they -5? Like, is there anything that we're missing?
Well, Dallas has won, I guess, the last.
That's true.
Dallas won a couple of games recently, and like they're at home, but I don't really think the home thing is that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Especially with no Dak. Like, I think the season's pretty much over. And I feel like the players also know that too. So you're just playing for paycheck right now.
Just pride.
Yeah, paycheck and pride, yeah. The spreads are wonky this week. One that I'm not gonna add on my little 2 that I'm picking this week. I do like how the Panthers have been competing. And I feel like anytime they have a big spread on them, like I think it's plus 12.5 with the Eagles. Now it is in Philadelphia.
Points, yeah.
There's a chance that they can maybe cover that, but that's not going to be a part of what I'm going to be doing. I kind of just like how Bryce has been playing, so I think they can maybe make that an interesting game. Not win it, but make it interesting. But talked about these 2 teams earlier. Detroit in the first segment and then Green Bay in the next one. I do like Jordan Love and his progression. Like I said, G brought it up. He can make superstar plays. It's on a fast track in Detroit. Detroit coming off that nail biter, which, I mean, who knows? If Chicago takes the time out, maybe Detroit's coming off a loss. So I think with this being a division game, people are going to think like they're going to be refocused. But I do think Green Bay also looks in a loss column and is like, well, I mean, we only have 3 losses ourselves. I mean, we've went through a lot of adversity this year. The Lions have 1 loss. I think at least in that division, like you guys talk about how the Lions, you just can't picture them winning the Super Bowl, even though the Lions have been the better franchise or one of the better franchises in the NFC for the last couple of years because of the way they've drafted and the talent they've had. I think Green Bay still carries himself as like they are the team in that division. So I think with Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, I think like we said is underrated. I think there's a chance they could clip the Lions at the Lions. I think the spread.
Wow, it's -3 with the Lions.
Yeah, which is that means they're saying it's a pick 'em because you get 3 at home. Yeah, which is kind of weird to me considering how dominant the Lions have been this year. So I think that speaks more to just the Green Bay. I mean, division. The division. I'll say it's division first, and then Green Bay's talent. So I kind of like Green Bay money line. That's a little bit more of a juicier type of play versus the 3 or 3.5. And then the next one I was looking at, the Chargers. I think out of all of the teams that played, I guess the Kansas City Chiefs, like it's kind of been like, I mean, the Broncos should have beat them. I feel like, Raiders weirdly played them well. So it's like, okay, you take that for granted. That's whatever. But Chargers are a really good team. I kind of believe with them, if they had another consistent receiver across from Ladd McConkey, we would be talking about them in a whole different light. I just think Ladd being a rookie, he's great. He's going to continue to do well. But it's just kind of hard, come playoff time and coming down the stretch with if he becomes no one guy, they're just going to bracket, do all kind of stuff. No one guy's going to be on him. And then Justin Herbert's really not going to have anybody to throw to. I think if they had another guy like, Quentin, and I will say Quentin Johnson had that bad game, whatever, I think it was last week or whatever, but like he's been getting better, like kind of looking like he was about to make a breakout. Yeah. So if maybe that happens, and I'll probably look at them differently. I saw that spread against the Chargers. Again, +3.5. They're getting at Kansas City, +172 on the money line. I kind of like the Chargers because I do think that they like to run the ball. Now J.K. Dobbins is out, but I've always been like steadfast on this point when it comes to Harbaugh. He's going to figure out a way to run the ball. That's just what he does. He did it at Michigan. He did it with the 49ers. It's the same thing with Shanahan. Yeah. Like they just figure out ways to run the ball. Now, could they run it more effectively with Dobbins? Yes. But like, Vidal, Edwards, whoever else,
they need to give
whoever it is, they're gonna figure it out. So I kind of, think that the Kansas City Chiefs may be more locked in and they may actually take this game serious because this is the team they respect. But I just think the Chargers I think they've already played this year, haven't they? Pretty sure they've already played.
Yeah, played.
I'm not sure if they haven't played yet.
They played this year.
Okay.
Chiefs won by I'll tell you.
Yeah. So I think these games are always tough. To be honest, AFC West teams kind of all play each other tough. Like they all kind of just round robin and go crazy. So I'm looking at that +3.5. I think the Chargers could get that money line. So if you want to combine those two of a money line, that gets you, I think, to like 550, something kind of modest. Or 580 gets you something modest. Because, like I said, nothing else on this list kind of excited me, like spread wise. Like I said, everything's in the -3 range, -2. I'm just not, and I do think, but another one like the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cleveland Browns, I got a weird feeling that the Pittsburgh Steelers may want to make a statement just because they kind of feel like that last one with the Browns kind of got away. So I think that spread is like 6.5. I think the Steelers might try to do a little bit more with the Browns. So that's another one I stayed away from. So those two that I'm kind of confident in, just money line, it's not any juice with a 3 or 3.5. So we'll see. Like I said, if I had to pick out of those two, oddly, I think I might say I like the Packers the most out of that. It's indoors. I think Jordan Love might be able to go off. So I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, man, with these picks getting down to the playoffs, it's going to be a lot more competitive games. I think these spreads are maybe going to go down a little bit more. So like I said, if you got a little bit of discretionary income and you just want to start throwing some money on some games, man, look at some of these bigger spreads like the Eagles and the Carolina Panthers, and maybe you can cash out a little bit. So, but that's going to be it for this episode. Make sure you guys are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Watch us on YouTube, Quantro Knows. Make sure you're looking at our content on Instagram, Tyson Talks _. Same for our TikTok. Posting content daily, mainly NFL. College football playoffs are going to be coming up soon, so there is already content leading up to that. So make sure you guys are liking and subscribing. And for me, Zoo and P. Bush, we are out.